Oh boy, here we go with this one here, guys. Final Fantasy XVI sales in Japan compared to Pikmin 4 debut sales in Japan. A really weird comparison, but it's a sales controversy or comparison that is happening all over the internet. Even when I just posted the sales numbers of Pikmin 4 doing good on Twitter, I got a bunch of people talk about, oh, it outsold Final Fantasy Lifetime today. Oh, hear this, look at this. And even on Gematsu, man, it is popping with people just talking crazily and the comparison between the two. Now, Pikmin 4 launched at 401,853 units in its first 3 days in Japan, beating out Final Fantasy XVI's lifetime to date total of 401,376 units. This is after multiple weeks on the market. Pikmin 4 did it in 3 days. Now, I want to be careful with this because the last time that I talked about Final Fantasy sales in Japan, this happened. Yeah, not everyone was very happy with me at that time. So I'll say this time. I legit don't care. And I'll say what I want based on my own analysis. I purchased Final Fantasy XVI, I purchased 2 PlayStation 5s, I purchased Pikmin 4, and I want both games to do well. So my analysis comes from the numbers and my thoughts on those said numbers. So I really don't care if you get mad at me or not. Now with that out of the way, we can talk about this very awkward comparison of polar opposite games that have sparked all sorts of discussion back and forth, and I think I know exactly why. And I'll give the breakdown on both sides when it comes to this sales controversy out of Japan. But first, what's good everyone? OJ here. Welcome back to another video. Please make sure you hit that like button, subscribe if you're someone new, and click that notification bell to get my videos first. Now let's talk about it from the Final Fantasy angle. Some of the stuff that I've seen a lot of Final Fantasy fans, hardcore defenders of that standpoint from what the sales are and all that, let's hear what they've had to say. They talk about the install base. Heck, Square Enix themselves talked about the install base and how it's extremely strong for the sales so far. And they were talking about worldwide, not in Japan, worldwide sales, extremely strong for the install base. And look, Sony gave them a bunch of money. It's not like, oh my gosh, they're losing out on all this money. They didn't get it back some way, shape, or form. I mean, yes, that can be true, but still, Sony still paid for a lot of this game, and obviously they have a deal that gave them a lot of money to make this game, especially exclusive, as a console exclusive, to the PlayStation 5. Plus, sales will grow as the PS install base grows. Final Fantasy XVI is still one of the best-selling games in multiple different regions when it comes to PS5 games. Now, this dropped off the top charts in many places, but it's still selling somewhat decently across the world. So I still think that as the install base grows, Sony just announced 40 million systems worldwide over that amount. We're going to see Final Fantasy XVI grow in sales, especially when those price drops hit this fall. Now, Square Enix says they're happy. They're happy with the 3 million plus sales in the first 6 days. So if they're happy with it, if they say it's extremely strong for the install base or given the install base, then by golly, slap your knee and they're okay with it. All right, guys? So that's that. Now, there's another side to it because companies play PR all the time. And part of this is PR because when it's Tomb Raider, I mean, that could sell 7 million in a week. And all of a sudden, that's just not good. It's disappointing. Didn't hit sales projections or sales targets, all right? Nothing hits sales targets for Square Enix. Deus Ex, Hitman, whatever else. Final Fantasy sell 100,000 copies. It's like, oh my God, that was great. It's doing fantastic. You know, if it's Tomb Raider, oh no, it's terrible. Sell it for 300 million. But no, that's a joke, guys. I'm joking with all of that. There's some truth to it, but I'm joking with most of that. But let's go to it from the other side, right? Like the Pikmin side, the Pikmin angle in terms of why people are comparing this and what is happening. So if you told someone 10 to 5 years ago that Pikmin on console would outsell or be more popular in Japan than a mainline Final Fantasy game, bro, they would have like laughed you off the face of the earth. If you went on Gematsu and said that, yeah, you know what? These Pikmin 3 Deluxe sales show that the next Pikmin game is gonna launch and outsell a major Final Fantasy game. Everybody would have said, you're crazy, you're a fanboy, you're this and that. So I think that's the reason why the discussion is being brought about here. One, yes, Final Fantasy in Japan didn't do as well, and yes, the sales have been declining when it comes to Final Fantasy, but it's the fact that Pikmin 4 did so much better in an era where a lot of franchises are doing the best that they've ever done in terms of sales. Whether there's a lower install base, higher install base, doesn't matter the case. I think that's also part of this whole thing with this whole Pikmin 4 comparison, and I think that it does speak to the declining sales. But Nintendo did a good job with Pikmin 4 when it comes to the marketing, the demo, and of course launching on a system that doesn't have an install base of like 75 units when it comes to like the GameCube and the Wii U, because that's what Pikmin was dealing with, just bad luck, I would say. GameCube did not have a large install base in Japan or worldwide, and the Wii U had an even worse install base by a good margin over the GameCube. I mean, GameCube looks good compared to the Wii U at times when it comes to sales, and that's definitely not good. So I think Pikmin 4 just got a, good break here compared to the previous Pikmin games, which had trouble. And we kind of saw that with Pikmin 3 Deluxe, that actually being the best-selling Pikmin game of all time at over 3 million on the Nintendo Switch, and that's just a port of the game that came out on the Wii U, so there's also that. Now, there's a whole nother angle to this, guys. I would be hard-pressed to tell you, all right, that's it, it's just those two things. No, there's another angle, and we're gonna get into it. This is probably the spiciest take out of everything here. So there are some Nintendo fans that do feel some resentment to Square Enix over not having a new or major Final Fantasy title built for the Nintendo Switch, considering how good the platform is doing there. It's like Nintendo's just selling these systems like hotcakes, and Square Enix is like, yeah, but we don't like selling like hotcakes. You know what I'm saying? We need something else. Like, we can't do that. Even though they did this with Final Fantasy in the past, right? Final Fantasy Crystal Bears, like, we've seen that before. Pretty much a lot of just ports. And yes, they did Bravely Default, they did Octopath Traveler, they've done Dragon Quest. They're doing some cool stuff, don't get me wrong, but some people want that high-end Final Fantasy. Let's say that effort that they put into Final Fantasy 13 in terms of the graphics and the fidelity and what they were doing there, that type of style or that type of game, like on the Nintendo Switch, I think there's some fans that want that ATB-based, traditional, new age Final Fantasy game, and Square Enix obviously is not delivering that, going in a different direction. So there is absolutely some resentment there. Even games with the Vita, or was it the PSP? It got that Final Fantasy Type O, right? It got that game built specifically for the handheld platform. It got games like Dissidia, for example, right? And like Square Enix isn't necessarily doing that with the Nintendo Switch, despite the incredible sales and everything. So I feel that there's some resentment there. And then there's a whole other type of fan. There are fans who don't even have a Nintendo Switch, don't even like Pikmin 4, but they are on this right here because it feels like it gives them the justification or the reasoning why Final Fantasy sucks now with Final Fantasy XVI, why Square Enix went in the wrong direction, why they made a bad move. They're like, hey, you can't even sell more than Pikmin 4. Like Nelson from, from The Simpsons or something like that, right? Like, I think that there's definitely those fans that feel that way, and they're using that. I've seen it on Gematsu where they say, hey, I don't even have a Switch, but I don't like what they did with Final Fantasy. This isn't my Final Fantasy. I'm drawing a line in the sand and just skip what they've done here. Heck, we saw that documentary, or we saw that video with Yoshi P. He's reading a bunch of comments from Japanese players that are just angry, and he feels so bad about it because he's like, why are these people yelling at me? I'm just trying to make a game. I worked really hard on this. So I think that there's that angle as well. And those fans are going to use any justification, any reason, any ounce that they can use to go against what Final Fantasy is doing to try to make it look like some type of failure, or they're going in the wrong direction, or they should have never done this. There is a lot of that going on as well. And once again, a lot of these people aren't even Nintendo fans or Pikmin fans. They're just chaos. They just don't like what they're doing, all right? They just want there to be problems. So there's also that. But here's the deal. At the end of the day, when it comes down to all of this, guys, this thing with Final Fantasy and it declining, Square Enix doesn't seem to care. Square Enix has had multiple years to evaluate what they want to do with Final Fantasy, what's going on with it, how they're going to do it. And they've clearly said no when it comes down to this. They've clearly said they are going to take the highest bidder. They're going to want the best quality of hardware. They're going to want the best quality of sound and everything for Final Fantasy, even at the expense, right? Even at the expense of the franchise not gaining in big popularity. Now, I will say this. I'm almost positive that Square Enix and Sony thought that Final Fantasy XVI would jumpstart sales in Japan and also worldwide even further than what we saw. Now, Square Enix, when it comes to Final Fantasy and all that, it's always been a console mover. And I think that's the most interesting thing about all of this, guys. Square Enix, they've always had a console mover, a console seller, a system seller with Final Fantasy, and this is the first Final Fantasy, major big new Final Fantasy, where I feel that it wasn't really a big system mover. It was a system maintainer, as in, okay, yeah, it's going to help out here and there, but it wasn't something that really galvanized the Japanese audience to go out there and pick up the PlayStation system like it did back in the day with the PS1, like it did with the PS3, like it did even with the PS4 with Final Fantasy 15 at that launch. Even Final Fantasy VII Remake, I think it did boost sales quite a bit for how old the PS4 was at that time. And this time we just didn't see that with the sales. It popped up a bit to like 80,000 or so, then went right back down. So I think that's one of the more interesting things about this whole situation is the fact that Final Fantasy isn't doing that. Now, I saw a lot of fans, man, a lot of fans saying, wait till Final Fantasy 16 comes out. Wait till Final Fantasy 16 comes out. That's gonna turn things all around, because there was a lot of talk when it comes to Japanese sales. I'm talking Japanese sales in particular here. A lot of talk at the beginning of the year. I was getting called stupid. I was getting called all these different names. I had people linking me all sorts of videos telling me that I don't know what's going on in Japan, that it's over for the Switch. It needs to come out with the successor. Look at how Sony's dominating now. It's all this and that. And oh my gosh, Final Fantasy 16 is coming out. It's going to get even worse. And all those people that have told me that, and all those people that were making videos, stop talking about it and stop making videos on that. We saw back in March things start to turn around quite a bit, and those people literally were like beep beep, like Roadrunner. They were out, they were gone. So I think it's funny, but at the same time, like, I understand, because when you don't actually analyze the market and you're just going from week to week, you're going to make analysis like that. Whereas I've been looking at the market for a long time, 10 plus years now at this point, so I know how these go in like ebbs and flows and waves and everything. And if you look at the whole history, Switch was just a beast. I mean, it's 30 million, right? At this point, it's getting right there at 30 million. What are your thoughts on this, guys? I think I've babbled on enough here when it comes down to it. What are your thoughts on all of this when it comes to the sales? I think that overall, Square Enix, they're probably fine with the sales. They're making their money. Nintendo's probably absolutely ecstatic with Pikmin 4 sales, as this franchise has never sold over 17 units for its first week. No, that's a joke, guys. But yeah, like, they're probably really happy with that. So I think it's cool. I think it's cool overall. I'm happy for both games, and we'll see what happens heading into the summer/fall here, because there's some big titles coming out soon, especially October. Ooh, there's going to be a lot of good stuff coming out, and Xbox has some stuff as well, and Sony has Spider-Man. So yeah, it should be fun to see how everything kind of shakes out. But what are your thoughts on this, guys? Let me know. Make sure you hit that like button. You subscribe if you are someone new, especially if you love Nintendo Switch, RPG, sales discussions. We got it all here. Make sure you hit that like button. Hit that notification bell to get my videos as soon as they drop. And thank you so much for watching. And I'll catch you for the next one. Peace.